Here's a whole nother conversation is just how minorities are looked at for deals.
How much percentage-wise less?
I don't want to say it's like boring, but I'm not putting on a facade of some loud persona that's like eye-catching that's gonna go viral overnight.
What was the moment for you where you're like, I'm gonna do this full time?
I don't want to put myself in that box of just the food guy.
Oh, so this is a rather new phenomenon.
Yes,
Word.
Getting paid to highlight a restaurant.
Today on Creators Lunch, we sat down with Brian Lindo, aka Brian Can't Stop Eating. Despite it being our first encounter, it didn't take us long to realize we're kindred spirits. We share common ground from growing up with the support of hardworking immigrant parents to our mutual passion for food. We discussed becoming full-time content creators, his approach to coming up with new formats, and long-term plans. Yes, sir. What did you get?
A bowl.
A bowl?
Yeah, keep it simple when we're not on the clock for the most part.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get a salad bowl, dog.
Man, that's impressive. Your appetite. I mean, you're out there in the field though, doing it every day.
I mean, this guy too, man.
So, yeah, I mean, that's something I want to talk about too, is just the maintenance and like keeping it alive, like health-wise, you know?
So how do you do it?
You know, it's a lot of everything, right? Like I personally always have had interest in fitness and like, you know, doing stuff, but as you get older, you can't outwork a bad diet, right?
For sure.
You know, I think that was something I could hold on to for a little while, but it's not really the case. But I know you guys are into like the running scene and stuff like that. I just ran the marathon, so
Stop.
Yeah, which was cool. Getting that rhythm going kind of gave me some structure. And then when you are working towards a goal like that, like your whole life kind of changes in a good way. Like maybe drinking less. You know, you're just making better decisions.
So that's all just maintenance. That's what you have to do, right?
And just trying to make smarter decisions when we can. You know, like my eyes always get bad. I love food. We all have the same boat. We love food, but like last night, I didn't have to go order the craziest food. We eat good all the time, so like sometimes you gotta pull back. That's all. And like,
well, that's what you started doing, right? Like you don't.
Yeah, like that's why I'm just eating salad. I ain't even putting no like rice in this. You know what I mean? It's just salad and protein. Like I have, like usually we allocate us one day of the week for shoots.
Okay.
And we hit up 2 spots on that day, no matter what. So, you know, the rest of the week, I'm trying, like, especially if I'm like not like spending time with the missus, or if I have to go, unless I have to go out, I try to like limit what I intake at the crib.
So as food content creators, another thing that I think might be cultural, I don't know, let me know if this is true, but I grew up in an immigrant household where I was like taught to eat everything.
oh yeah,
Right?
100%.
Oh yeah, no leftovers.
100%.
No leftovers.
It's a tough thing.
That's not a thing, right? Yeah.
That was the thing. So when I first started doing Righteous Eats back in 2020, one of the concerns I raised to him, because, you know, we came up with the idea together. I was like, yo, Brian, but what if like I can't finish the meal? And he was like, yo, like take it home or just throw it away. And I'm like, what do you mean throw it away?
It's not an option.
Like, what? You don't do that. You know what I mean? And not saying I throw it away now, because, you know, I work with our producer, Rob, and we always like split the meal and portion it out and we eat it as leftovers. But yeah, like I realized that, I'm not going to say specific names, but I think like in TV production and, you know, like food production in general, there's a lot of food that gets wasted.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally. I've seen, like, it's interesting because like even on, I've helped out a friend who's a director for food shoots occasionally. Like it happened twice, but like I'm supposed to eat something on camera and you don't swallow what you eat on camera. That was so...
Wait, what?
Oh, what?
You don't. You literally, because in theory, you can take multiple takes and you don't want to get full off of just eating all this food. So you literally are taking a bite, they cut the frame, and then you end up like spitting it out in like a spit bucket. Like, and they say, don't stress about it, let it out, like spit it out. And then if you got to take it again, you take another bite. It's crazy,
you
like
just
stuff
fucked
like that.
my head up.
So
like,
if you look at TV shows or movies, you'll see that every time they bite something, it clips to something else. So you never see them swallow anything.
Wow.
Literally watch it, you'll see. It's crazy. Yeah.
Wow.
My mind's blown, like legit.
Actually, like
I did not notice.
Crazy.
So let's rewind it back a little bit, man. Well, first of all, thank you so much for, you know, coming all the way out here and giving us your time. And let's rewind it back, man. You know what I mean? Like, who are you and like,
What kind of content do you make, and how did you get into, I guess there's multiple questions, but let's just talk about who are you and what kind of content do you make?
Yeah. So I'm Brian Can't Stop Eating, and I think this was such a cool thing to be coming on and talking to you guys about this, because I think there's a lot of similarities in what we try to do and what we try to accomplish. But I guess when I first started making content, it was just me basically living in New York City. I wanted to always be a valuable person in the sense of like people had asked for recommendations, whether like families coming to town, taking a girl out to dinner, or like going out with coworkers. There was a lot of value that I took pride in being that guy before, social media was a thing. Just always knowing like a spot to go to and give that guidance. And then, as things transition and I start to like learn, and this goes back to even like culturally for my family on Long Island, it was like eating meals at home was the basically cuisine I got. And if it wasn't at home, I was eating at Applebee's or Fridays. So, me being in New York City, my eye was like opening up to all these different cuisines, all these different cultures. And then I started to fall in love with the story. So that's kind of like where the transition and maybe where the two worlds started to meet. And that's where my page kind of, I think, shines right now. It's me not only helping the locals and the travelers that come to New York City to find good places to eat, and whether that is like hole in the wall to Michelin star to kind of understanding what's worth it. And then also highlighting these small businesses, right? So there are some businesses that don't necessarily need the press, but that the people that are coming to town can benefit from that knowledge of knowing they exist, or just sharing the word, or just being like, this is worth it or not. But then there's also the brands and not brands, there's the restaurants that don't have the money for a PR company. So they're not, it's in something to unpack, and we could talk about it, I'm sure, in a little bit, but just how some of these like restaurants that have the funding and the backing, how they move is different than a lot of these mom and pops move. There's just such an ignorance. They know how to make good food, but like really getting people's foot in the door, that marketing and that engine that exists now, they're still navigating it, right? So for me, I love being a person that can be that first step into that world, kind of highlighting someone who doesn't maybe have a great social media or doesn't have the money to go get a PR company to go build this out for them and recruit influencers to come in and doing all that. So
I want to tell me more about like how did you get to that? Like,
what did you do?
Yeah, what did you do before?
Yeah. So graduated college, was a finance major, went to Boston College.
Okay. Nice, good Catholic.
Yeah, it was Jesuit Catholic. Didn't know what a Jesuit was before I went there. Okay. Did that, and we had a good business school, and I think our business school was so dominant in the country at the time because of the finance program. And so if you got into that finance program, you kind of like...
Yeah, like a road paved for you, right? It's like, you become an analyst, you get that job.
100%.
Recruiting was a thing.
Yeah.
Yes, but that's where the money for recruiting went, Like, I feel like there's a lot of other majors that maybe didn't get... Because of the business powerhouse it was, they had all the banks coming.
You majored in business?
Majored in business, majored in finance.
Okay.
Ended up going to GE Capital, so General Electric, like the microwave company, just collared shirt, buttoned up, khakis, like it was what you would think just stuffy, boring corporate America would be. And I just knew that like me looking at my boss's boss, while I was doing well there, it wasn't like what I could see my future as, right? And I know I'm so young in my career, nothing has to be perfect, but I want to be like marching somewhat in the right direction. Yeah. And I just wasn't getting that there. So I had a friend who talked to me, and he had been working at Salesforce for a couple of years. And he was like, I think you'd be really good with it. We could probably tell a story on how to make you transition. And I got into tech sales. So tech sales, I think, and the corporate America background, like GE, I think gave me a polished like perspective and how to like navigate rooms with important people. And then Salesforce taught me like to be nimble, to be quick, to be personable. They were just like a very dynamic tech company led by like a really great CEO, like he was just very good and idolized by a lot of his people that were following him, right? So he gives back to the community. He does like all those right things. And so I was in that environment learning, and then I picked up the food stuff on the side.
When did you start doing this?
My year 2 of GE.
So you've been doing it for a while.
Yeah.
Like 2016.
Probably 8 years seriously.
Oh, wow. You've been a creator for that long.
Yes. Yeah.
And what were you doing food content back then too?
Yeah. So and it was a totally different game then too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I would say like, I'm definitely a slow burn guy. I think like my content, I don't want to say it's like boring, but I'm not putting on a facade of some, loud persona that's like eye-catching that's going to go viral overnight.
Again, another reason why I think we're in a kindred spirits. Yes.
I think it's our I'm talking about us, but like, and we're focused on the right thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's more than us versus a lot of people run the content as just like it's their show to be this person, and that's okay.
If I could share the thing that we always say, and real success came for us because we weren't trying to be interesting. We were just trying to be interested. Mm-hmm. Right.
100%. The curiosity is my biggest thing. That's like where everything like kind of stems from. When I'm looking for restaurants, just me floating around different restaurants, me not having the 5-star dining experience as a kid, but like curious, what does that world look like? And hoping to inspire people to just go try it. I think it just makes you well-rounded to go from both sides and learn about both sides. And that was that curiosity that was kind of brewing in me to kind of make it go.
What was the moment for you where you're like, I'm going to do this full time?
But I think the biggest push at the end of the day was my fiance. A lot of people may have made this jump 2 years ago, but Caribbean or just
second generation,
like, you want to be as risk averse as possible.
100%.
And and my parents support me in everything I do, but you could hear some doubt in it. They're like, just, we know you could do it, but you have a secure job, and you're doing well at that job. And I was on my path at Salesforce too to like do what I had to do. But the logic was that she said, we don't have kids right now. So go take your risk, go make your jump, make your leap. We're okay. You could always go back to Salesforce and see what happens.
Yeah, and if you were to do it, you have to do it now, basically.
Yeah, because there's a whole layer of stress. I don't know, God willing, kids come into picture, but I want them soon. And once the kids come into play, there's a lot more stress that comes into it. I'll take a risk. Like if you look at me and my family, I'm probably the most risky of my family, but it's still super calculated. Like I wasn't going out with no savings. I wasn't going out with like already having a cushion in mind just in case. Like I tried to mitigate it as much as possible. And that's why I say there are people, especially in this creator economy that I think might have made this jump 2 years prior before I did in the situation that I was in. But yeah, we got to it. We eventually got there.
You're 31, so you started this journey in your late 20s after you've had about close to a decade of professional career experience. Like this isn't, like we're not in our early 20s straight out of college. We're like, we could just kind of experiment and, figure this out as the way it is,
It all makes sense to me now because even your approach to how you treat it as a job, I think you greatly benefited from your corporate experience.
Totally agree.
Right?
And even like I have a manager now and she's worked with a gambit of people, right? And how she talks to me and like, she sees the maturity that exists with just having corporate experience. Yeah, I've had 2 managers in my run so far.
Well, can I ask you first, when did you get your first manager? How far into
45,000 followers.
On Instagram.
45,000. Okay.
Was this a manager that was part of an agency or was it an independent
She was
manager?
independent. And I had a friend who was leveraging her as well, who vouched for her and said that she like had gotten her opportunities and stuff like that. And she was fantastic. Like I thought she was really great. I feel like I may have outgrown the situation slightly because I was making this transition to full-time. But for everything that she was and like how she handled me with a corporate job, I thought was like exactly what I needed. If I had a bulldog manager at that time, she's not a bulldog. She's really good at negotiating and stuff like that, but she's not like banging down doors and like getting me in the room per se, which a lot of the stuff she was just navigating was the inbound stuff. But the amount of times I've been burned on a deal because I tried to negotiate something quick on myself because I had to jump on a Salesforce call shortly after and they needed a rate by end of day. Like running into those issues, being able to offload that to someone else and someone who can like take a little bit of the emotion out of it was just such a game changer for me. Word. And she was really good for me having a corporate job. Like I didn't need, if someone was literally picking up the phone and getting me a deal every single day, I'd be underwater. I was a sales job at Salesforce. Like if things are going well, you can kind of coast a little bit, right? You're hitting your number, you're good. But like you have a lot, I think the clock resets every month too. Yeah. So for what it is, like you feel like you can take the foot off the gas and then 31st comes and you got to go right back in it. It's so inconsistent. So having someone to kind of help offload that and just, because you overthink it naturally. When you're looking at a deal, at least I do.
So did that come to the natural end of the course with your first manager?
Yeah, and I think here's why. The timing of me making that transition to full-time I thought it was good to get a new person in because this new person, the feedback I got from people that worked with her is that she's like very much so forward thinking. She was like in the think tank with you and like who you want your brand to be. How do you see it in 5 years? You're going to get married. Are you going to stay in New York forever? Like she's having those conversations.
She's a strategist.
For sure.
Word.
And that's the phase I'm in right now,
Totally,
right?
yeah.
So it made perfect sense.
And not an independent manager situation.
Recently independent.
Okay.
So she was working with an agency firm as well.
Word.
Okay.
And it's been fantastic so far too. Like all like rave things to say. And like I said, it's just you want someone who's in your corner. I think I also like you want a roster, but you don't want too big of a roster. But you want a roster that for her to have, so she can also see
Leverage, yeah.
It's leverage, but
And also there's synergy.
But she's also seeing what other people are getting. And here's a whole nother conversation: is just how minorities are looked at for deals. She's got white people on her roster. She sees where the offers are coming in from me, and so if she sees a discrepancy, she can call them out right away. That's the benefit. Because it comes up, and there's always like...
Because the engagement is similar, the retention
Totally.
is similar, but then like, let's say a white creator with a similar following as you, let's say that person gets X amount, how much percentage-wise less would they offer you?
I don't really even know, to be honest. And I think it's more... Here's the way I look at it is by having a manager, the brands have to stay honest. And if they're not honest, they'll get called out. So anytime anyone approaches me, they know they have to go through her and they have to come with a realistic offer, you know, because she will call BS on it real quick and be like, this is ridiculous. Don't take it. Or we're pushing back because of X, Y, Z. She has the receipts basically, you know? So
what percentage of her job and your interaction with her is spent on strategy and what percentage is spent on the actual day-to-day business?
we talk every day.
Okay.
That's great.
Every day we talk. What makes it good is because she now takes over my email, which was very hard to let go at first because you just never see what's going
100%.
on. You don't know what's going on.
What was the part that you was like, was it the doubt? It's like, what if I missed a detail? What if like she's hiding something?
Well, she's new too.
Right.
You know, now the trust is there and she was down for the transition period. She was like, you want me to CC you on everything? I can. Sometimes it just looks better if you're not on the email. But she's like, you know, you could see how I work to begin with and then we can slowly start to remove you. And we kind of had maybe a week of that. And then I was like, let's just trust the process. Let's just go with it, like head down and see what happens.
Trust the process. We love to use that.
Yeah, you got it.
We love to use that phrase around here.
Yeah, and so my old manager, I got to see the email, I would just forward everything to her.
Yeah.
But this one, I don't see anything. And then you always, I think the tough part too, when you don't see the emails coming in is you don't know what she's sourcing for you versus what is just naturally coming as your inbound. But what makes me feel better about my decision is her worth is so much more than just finding me a deal. Like her worth is the strategy sessions to me. Her worth is like my success, my mental health, like that kind of stuff. Having someone in your corner that truly like knows what you're about, what you're doing versus more of an agent role.
Yeah.
And an agent can go do the hunting and then she'll keep the agent honest too, right?
Yeah.
So that's like my relationship with her.
What we see a lot is, especially as creators get bigger profiles, I mean, the deals are going to come, right? And to your point, an agent, they're incentivized to try to maximize what is right in front of you. But the greatest managers and your partners are actually trying to figure out what to do 10 years from now.
Totally.
You know what I'm saying? So they're not transactional.
100%.
Right? So they might say yes to a small deal and no to a big deal.
Right.
But they're lockstep with you in knowing exactly why.
I couldn't agree more. And that she like, her biggest thing was, especially early on. Early on, we were meeting once, and this is the benefit too, is that she lives in New York.
You guys local.
My other manager didn't. Once again, not a knock. Everything could have been done remote, but like there are moments where I'm going on site somewhere. She can show up and she could be there and she could work the room with me. She can get some face time. That's that hunger I need right now when this is my full-time job.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We were meeting once a week for the first like 4 months in person. And we would, sometimes it'd be like a very pointed, organized agenda. Then sometimes it would be just like, let me just work and you be working right next to me and we could talk, but just seeing how we work, just feeling each other out. Like part of that is the motion of trusting, right?
Where are you in the roster in terms of size?
I think I'm the second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like she's spending a ton of time with you.
She
right?
does. Yeah, she's growing her team now too. Because I know that she was spread thin, but she doesn't make excuses. I'm telling you, I'll get a text, or she will just give me the green light to text her at any time. That's like her mentality. I have the green light whenever.
And that's usually the best managers.
Yeah. So I don't know how she does it, and I would say like
they're on the phone all the time.
All the time. All the time. And like she's banging her keyboard all the time, but she knows how to fit me in somehow. And the person, her like biggest client is Lit. She's got a really big talent on her roster.
Right. Are there any other food creators? Like, does she own a vertical? Or
no, she's got her hands in a couple things, which is good. I like that because I'm also not competing with other food people, but my content is restaurant leading, but I do occasionally, whether it's even through stories or sometimes in posts, try to show more lifestyle capabilities.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you could definitely get into some men's grooming. Well, you know what I mean?
I'm trying to look low-key with the beard.
I see that you got good skin. You know
Thank you. Yeah. I'm trying to get that Kiehl's deal. We'll see what happens.
You're about to get married, so maybe that could be a whole different vertical. You know what I mean?
She's always thinking of me, and she's always trying to stretch me too, to think bigger.
Yeah.
And I think in my benefit, I'll get some of that spillover from maybe some of the other creators, potentially. It's hard for someone who's not food to just pick up a food deal.
Yeah.
But like someone else could be working with the alcohol brand and that could fall over to me very easily, you know?
Have you done an alcohol brand?
I have.
What's that experience been like?
Pretty good. Like it used to be really good. And now it's a little harder. Because I think as everyone's navigating social media, like you can get canceled so fast. All you need is one wrong thing. So alcohol being such a sensitive subject, making sure you're over 21, like all that stuff. They just have a lot more attention to detail, I think.
Alcohol is definitely like high risk, high return.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that yours?
That's how I would say it. Thank you.
I got the joint with the cucumber. Yeah. Where's yours?
I just got a dessert.
You just got a bar?
Yeah.
Word?
This is a baklava, apparently.
It's a baklava.
It doesn't look like a baklava.
But it's not drenched with honey.
Yeah, it's not moist. Yeah. Baklava and flan are
like the most desolate baklava.
What was the size? Like, so first manager you got at 45,000.
Yeah.
Where were you when you left that first manager? And then where were you when you started with the new one and where are you now?
Yeah, so the transition to the new one is literally probably like 3 weeks. And so
3 weeks.
the conversation was being had and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I closed ties with my old manager. And once again, like you leave amicably because she did nothing wrong. I think she was perfect for my time.
Yeah.
And I think that like what I needed was a little bit more of that consulting strategy mindset. Yeah. So that's where my switch came from. But it was basically 3 weeks. And that was part of her transitioning from her old firm. And then also me kind of getting ducks in the row towards the end of the year too. And then we really kicked things off like the mid-January, February. And I was probably at that point, I saw an email that I was looking at for reference last year. I was 130K in November last year. So then give or take 5 to 10K. Also, just like why I say slow burn, it took me 6 years to get to 50K. And then now in the last 2 years, there's been some more growth transition, which is good.
Where are you now?
304
on Instagram.
On IG.
Okay. And IG's your main platform.
Yeah, and like there's no excuse. I've tried to make an excuse like I was too busy to post stuff on TikTok when it was time. I was in my full-time job, should have been doing both, but there's no excuse because I could have been repurposing content. And I think I got a late start to that. We're 100K, a little over 100K, like 114 on TikTok.
What about YouTube?
YouTube, starting to do shorts. Once again, like probably a hair late for that when I started. And we're like 2,000 followers on YouTube. But I think like we're going to hopefully talk about a series that I'm kicking off, 50 States, 50 Foods.
Yeah.
I think it has YouTube potential. So I've been shooting everything horizontal and then being able to crop in for later for the short form stuff. And the short form stuff is what I've been publishing on IG right now. But I think I'm just intimidated to edit for YouTube.
Yeah, do you have a team? Do you have an editor? Who are you working with?
So we did like a small stint with an editing team. Didn't work out. It was someone I actually found on TikTok. I think they were called like Blank Slate or something like that. And they hired everyone overseas.
So they were just an agency, a middleman that was like outsourcing shit.
For sure. Like they had editing experience, but they were the business beside it, right? They were outsourcing all that effort somewhere else.
Yeah.
Philippines maybe.
Philippines.
Yeah. And the toughest part is just like the non-local back and forth. Like she would make a mistake and then it would take literally 24 hours for me to get.
And was this for short form or long form?
It was for short form.
Okay.
Wow.
And it was like a test, right? Like short form's an easy test before you get into long form stuff because that takes way more time.
But
more
it was
expensive.
like, you know, supposedly cost efficient.
Yes.
But it ended up taking more time.
Yeah, and like I also with the full-time job when I did it, like didn't have that much time to go out and get a crazy amount of content. And you guys know how these platforms are. Like name of the game is just being on the page and like posting kind of consistently as you can. So I always have that stress like every day that I'm waiting for a small change because that's how it would take. And they have a 24-hour response time. Like I could have made this adjustment if I just had the file and like did it locally, you know? So I was like, okay, we're leaving that scenario. So now we're in the market to be looking for someone, and I have someone in mind, and she's another friend of a friend referral. She's got good stuff. Like she's definitely like, you know, DP sound and like knows how to do all that stuff. But it's a matter of just can she translate my stuff the way I want it to look.
What is good stuff?
She like edits for Hulu and like little things like that. But I don't like. Of course, anyone can do that short form, but can they do it?
See, that's
the right short form.
I know what you're gonna say.
That's the thing.
From our experience, that has actually been a hindrance.
Okay.
When you have that background, when you come from that studio world, I mean, you know, you're the man in the arena. Like we're out here filming our own stuff, like making it happen by any means necessary. And then they're like, "Yo, I didn't get the right sound file from the DP," and like, "Oh,
it's like, yo, I need better lighting." It's like, yo, I need more budget for this.
Yeah. Right. I think the other part, and I think we all get this too, because we're all doing it grassroots. There's no rhyme or reason to how I edit. There's no real flow. As much as I try to like make something that can be repeatable in SOP, like, and I'm being more mindful of that now. I'm curious how you guys operate. Some of you guys do voiceovers, and then there's editing that happens. Are you recording the voiceovers before the edit happens? Are you working with the editor real time? I'm curious of those like couple steps because I think that'll help me out in guiding my future editor.
It depends on the video, but for instance, like Righteous Eats. We have like this series called Righteous Eats Classics, which is like the series that we started and then now is produced by our partner, Rob Martinez. Essentially what we do is we book a eatery, we go in there. Rob already has like a shot list in his mind.
Okay.
Go in, get the shot list.
Well, we have a form too.
Yeah.
We have a form where we always wanted from the beginning to have a utility in the format. We made a thing called the essentials. Essential number 1, essential number 2, essential number 3.
Cool.
So now we'll actually send that as a pre-production note to say what 3 dishes do you guys want us to cover.
Interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
So we know exactly which 3 dishes that we want to cover. We know the shot that we need in the entrance of the restaurant, exit of the restaurant. We need the shots in the kitchen. So we have all these shots that we already know going in.
Right.
After we visit the restaurant, the script gets written. And then once the script is solidified, I record a VO. The shot list is already structured based on the script.
Got it.
So you just basically use the VO to plug in the shots. But we have like a tight-knit team of editors so that I could just focus on being the talent. Rob could focus on doing the production because, you know, this is a grassroots startup because everything is happening where all these brand deals are subsidizing Righteous Eats.
Yeah.
You know, Righteous Eats is not a profitable company by any means right now. Everything is coming out of our pocket. So if we don't get these brand deals, the ship just would not operate.
To answer your question though, like we literally have an SOP.
Yeah.
And that's why it works.
Right.
And that's why meeting you, I'm like, you're going to inherently have an advantage over everybody else. Right. This isn't our first go. It's not my first go.
Right.
So it's like
because you already know what an SOP is. You know?
Yeah. You're probably, I don't know who else we'll have on, but you know, you are the first creator to use SOP, right? And it's like, okay, well, even in how we approach content the first time,
right?
I'm thinking about how it scales. We're thinking about how repeatable is it. We're thinking about, you know, how much utility is there? Right. Where's the format and the structure to aid in that utility, right? Yep. We're thinking about all these things.
I get like hearing it, you know, I could guess maybe because like once you get that extra team involved, like the editors, big or small, like you got to be able to guide them. And that's where just me doing it myself, like I will be like sitting there like kind of raw and just like, all right, put them together, see how it works. Maybe do a script and then I line it up. So the lining up makes sense. I think it's getting those shots a little bit more organized before I show up. But I think part of how I go to restaurants as well is like I kind of just show up and I'm ordering like as I order, right? So I'll ask the waiter for some stuff and what they recommend. but I don't really like, I'm not in touch with them ahead of time.
Totally.
95% of the time. So some of that, like, just knowing what, so I'm real time, I'm like tasting, like, is this actually good? Is this, worth highlighting? But I could easily just every dish do the same, like visual, because I'm going to talk over it anyway and say what it, like, just in case, and I could always pull it out after the fact. So there are little things that, I
think it's also important to note your approach though, because like one thing that we do is that we refrain from saying that this is a review. We just call it a highlight, which is what it is. Like we don't say, yo, this is horrible. Like, you could have cooked the steak a little better. Like we don't say any of that.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, but if that's your approach, which I think there's nothing wrong with that.
Which I really don't. I think review is the wrong word.
Right. But if you do though,
and
if you do, I think it's totally fair for you to show up unannounced. Because I mean, that's the purpose of the review, right? You get to see it the way it is. So I think it really depends on like what you want to convey with the content.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
That's totally fair.
Yeah.
It's curious your thoughts on this too, because I saw a video from you guys a little while ago, just talking about you're investing all your money basically back in the business, and I think that's where a chunk of my money goes. Like, there's other stuff that I have to live like normal stuff where some money goes, but
of course,
majority of it is back for the travel that I'm paying for my content, for the restaurants I'm eating at. I probably pay for 95% of the food that I eat. And then the other 5 is like sometimes the relationships I build over time with these people. I'll go, a lot of times that content isn't documented. It's more so just friends catching up. But for sake of transparency, I'm paying for everything, right? Creators right now, and I think it happened like in the last year. I swear when I first started doing this, I would say like I'm like generation 3 of food creators of New York City. Cool. Like generation 1 is like Jeremy Jacobowitz, like Brunch Boys. He was like one of the first early movers. Devour Power, early movers. This girl Raina, who's like pivoted to like podcast stuff too. She was also food focused. And then like there's 2, which was a lot of just more nimble friends just having fun. And I was like third wave. And so I saw what was going on there. And a lot of times it was just having fun, going out with friends. We're just going to go split meals. And then occasionally it got to like events where they would invite like 10 people. And then COVID kind of stopped that. And now people are just kind of doing this comp meal situation to now getting paid to come highlight.
Oh, so this is a rather new phenomenon.
Yes.
Word.
Getting paid to highlight a restaurant.
Interesting.
And so I'm seeing, and a lot of the people who were part of that first, second, third gen are like it doesn't sit fully well because the margins of restaurants are so thin anyway. Yeah. And I guess the logic on both sides is, they could pay a PR company to do and run all this stuff. So why not give that money to us, who's going to actually amplify, and it's part of marketing
and bring
budget,
sales,
and bring sales.
Right.
But I guess it's all everyone's approach at the same time, because for me, I think that puts me at risk to lose loyalty with my following because you're getting paid.
I think that's the key part that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Because, if you are transparent about that, like, if you got 2 bands for highlighting this pizza joint, and you actually say, I got 2 bands for highlighting this pizza joint, and that's why I said this pizza is delicious. That's an ad that you made for this restaurant
for sure
as an agent.
Mm-hmm.
I think what's happening is just a natural evolution in the business model. A long time ago, you would have to hire an agency. That agency would have to put you up in Eater, would have to put you up on TV. Well, then you start to understand those things mean less and less. Okay, now what matters more? Direct connection with creators and people that have influence over, like, hey, I went to this restaurant, individuals, right? Mm-hmm. So then now you have agencies that hire and call out to influencers to say, will you come to my thing? And that was our value prop. Now the best restaurants are actually just going directly and saying, hey, will you come to me? Will you come? And it's either will you come because we'll take care of you, or will you come now instead of giving the money to the agency, we'll give it to you.
Yeah, what's your rate?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, that $10,000 retainer that I pay the agency, I'll pay you $1,000 and I pay 9 other kids $1,000 each.
Totally.
And I'm getting more views and I'm getting more engagement. So.
And I want to be super clear in saying our approach is definitely coming from a place of privilege, like us being like, we're going to pay for everything. Mm-hmm. Us calling out people that don't call.
For sure.
Like, it's the privilege of being able to pay, number one. It's the privilege of having restaurant friends and being super close to the industry.
Totally.
It's the privilege of working in media and understanding what comms is. It's all of that, right?
Totally agree.
But we have a format that we just don't have the bandwidth to do right now. We want to do a format for those PR agencies that are doing this and say, hey, you know what? Yo, if you're going to give us a $300 thing, a comp, we'll give it to our community.
That's really cool.
Right? We'll give it to our community and then everyone wins.
Yep.
The agency wins, the restaurant wins, and our community wins.
Yep. Because that's the fastest way to transition someone foot in the door, right?
Exactly.
Is to use that money to get someone to come in. They'll bring a friend or two. They're going to spend more probably than what the gift card holds, and then everyone wins. And they get the actual foot traffic. Yeah.
But I think to your point, like, if there's nothing wrong with getting paid. Like, we definitely don't knock anyone's hustle.
Totally.
But I think it's just the transparency about it.
It's such a sensitive thing to talk about because to your point, you can't. It's people feeding their family, feeding themselves, and it's expensive here, right? Like, you can't knock it. But I think where it kills me is when I get looped into a conversation that I shouldn't be looped into, if that makes sense, right? Because everyone looks at influencers kind of as a whole.
Tell your stories, yeah.
That's where it gets difficult.
Yeah, I mean, like, I wouldn't even call it a critique. It's just a suggestion is that, yo, if this is a quick hustle for you within this time frame, that this style of transactional content creation surrounding restaurants is viable.
Yeah.
Get your bag, yo. Every content format is like a basketball player's career. It's like a timeline. You could milk it until it's no longer
You have to master
hot.
it
on, yeah.
You know what I mean? So, yo, like, get your bag if that's your intent. But our intent is, yo, this is just like step one of many other things that we want to eventually achieve. And in order for us to do that, we need to have a robust community.
Yep.
And to get a robust community is trust.
100%.
And trust is something that you can't really quantify with a couple $1,000s in restaurant vouchers. You know what I mean? So
100%. I'm not one to like scream that from the rooftops of I'm paying for everything.
Which is just an approach too.
You know? And there are people who are better at that than I am. And maybe that would get me out of some of those conversations of how much you get paid for this or what, like, not. Like, I'm really out here trying it. If I don't like it, I don't post it. And that's all the thing too that I love is like, I'm not owned by anybody by taking a little quick buck. You know what I'm saying? I get the freedom to say what I want. If I don't like it, you don't see it. I'm not a hit list page, like a hit list like page like some creators are too. Like, the industry is so tough. It is so tough for these restaurant owners in New York City. 90% of them won't make it. Like, it's just realistic. So every time you come in and just like shit on a restaurant, like shit on it, and I don't love it. I don't appreciate it. Especially when it's no bounds.
there's minimal consequences for the person doing the shit. You know what I mean?
That's exactly where I'm at, bro. Like,
You're
not even
flushing
saying
the
like
toilet,
there's,
you know?
maybe here's where you can get better.
Right.
No, it's just like they just light them up for no reason, and it's just like not for no reason. It may not be perfect, but like have that conversation. Just say like I have the power to do something with this, but also how we use it of I've had the privilege to go to so many restaurants, so now I see what works and what doesn't work. Maybe give some advice or give some before you go ring the alarm and tell everybody this is bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, where did they go wrong? Maybe tell them on the side. You know, like don't let them find out the first time on social media. I have so much pride in my work, right? I have so much pride in how I approach things. I take so much time to like do my research, try my best to vet a restaurant off of like seeing what reviews were good, like what should I be like digging into, spending time looking and hunting new places. My fiance also gets involved. Like with her Uber Eats background, she knew how to like scour the whole city looking for brand new places that opened up, how to like things that are getting traction. She's really good at that too. So she films my stuff. We just spend so much time. Yeah. And then for people to like water down like, oh, you're just cashing in on this restaurant, like it just, it hurts, you know? Yeah. But we move on, you see it and you gotta like, you just know that your motive and what you're doing is bigger than a comment or two. But
that one comment that wants to ignite that reaction out of you, or it could even just be a comment just out of, you know, blissful ignorance.
Yep.
It could like affect an hour of your day.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? Whereas like, but then again, you're like, damn, that's an hour that I had to like, I could have been spending on something else, you know.
And then
like,
you think like, should I go back and educate? Like there's like you go with this whole thing the whole time. It's like, is it worth my time right now, or should I be? You know.
I mean, do you reply to the comments?
Try to.
Okay.
Whenever I try to. Yeah.
Okay.
sometimes there's just a lot. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you never know.
Can you talk a little bit about your creative process and how you come up with new formats? Like the 50 states?
Yeah.
Right?
That was like kind of like a tag team approach of just assessing the year, assessing the landscape of what's going on here in New York City, and then assessing future. Right now, I don't have any sight of me leaving New York City, but who's to say that like that may not change if a kid comes in the picture and you want more space, you want to move out somewhere. I think that was like a look at what's been working, but also there's a rat race going on in New York City. Like you guys, I'm sure see it. Like everyone's racing to like the newest restaurant, and food creators are just popping up always. And I think it's a low barrier to entry too. Like everyone eats, so everyone kind of feels like an expert. Everyone feels like they're a foodie, you know? Like
so by putting that distance between where you eat, you're literally putting that distance between you and the other creators.
Little bit. It's elevating, you know? It's elevating myself and kind of showing myself, my followers, and leveraging my platform for bigger than New York City. Like I'm gonna be here now. That's what I do naturally. But how can more people get on my platform and be more interesting?
Do you see an uptick in conversion from cities when you go to that city?
Yes. It takes a little time to warm up. I think it takes a little time to warm up. I feel like it's like trying to find the audience that's supposed to get to. It was just a way that like I could start to learn more, be curious, like try new things, like learn why
and
certain
also
foods
expand
exist.
your like addressable market.
100%. And like more eyes can see me beyond New York City.
Yeah.
And so long term, if I ever want to leave, I'm not pinned to just being known as a New York City foodie. I'm a traveler. I'm just an eater. I like telling stories for people in general, right? So there's a little bit of that, but then also like leveraging my platform for what it's there for is to highlight more businesses. Yeah. Me learning about huckleberries in Montana. So interesting. And not every one of my followers cares about that, but I do have like some super fan followers that want to learn that story, learn that you can't grow, huckleberries have to grow in the wild. They have to be a 5,000 foot elevation. They need alkaline rich soil, only comes from forest fires. They are like $75 a pound, like versus a blueberry. Like it's crazy. And you only think about And so that's like an interesting thing that people are just getting educated on. So it's, I found so much joy in like, it's the value that I'm bringing, right? And there's someone who's interested in that story, someone who's curious about what everyone eats. Like why is Kansas City barbecue so good? What makes it different from Texas? Like that's what I'm touching on these things. So it's just kind of making me a little bit deeper. Yeah. And then, you know, highlight other people too.
No, that's dope, man. So I totally understand like the actual strategic approach and like the benefits that could come from that of you just like putting your flag into different parts of the US so that hopefully this content appeals to a newer audience.
Totally. And, you know, I think like as it catches steam, as it gets more interesting, like I do see opportunities for brands to make sense. And that's the thing too, when you look and approach brand deals, you want it to feel as good as possible. You want it to feel natural to your content. And like, how am I going to fund this? How do I go about this the right way? Like, yes, I can hit up every tourism board, but like then tourism boards also have the restaurants that they want to highlight. So I'm kind of self-funding this right now. And then how do we, it's just right pocket, left pocket. How do we make it all make sense? But I have faith that like it's showing that I'm on the move. I'm on the go. I'm traveling. I travel comfy. I have luggage. I'm trying like a lot of restaurants that have been on either TV or Goldbelly or like little things like that. Like there's a market where a deal can come naturally, and that's the best deal to have.
How much of your partnerships right now are inbound versus outbound?
Probably 95%.
Inbound.
Yeah. Okay. Same.
Yeah.
I would say 100%.
Yeah, me too. I would too. I try to think about like, I think I've reached out to one brand once. It was a knife company. Me trying to cook a little bit more. It was like, all right, cool. Let's shoot the shot. It makes sense. Like me trying to get, I like good quality stuff. Also good quality, you know, equipment in the kitchen for my home. And that was like kind of what made sense. But other than that, it's basically been all inbound. And I like this phase into the year is making sure they're all priced right and like make sense. Cause the name of the game is the sweet spot, right? Of taking the right amount of deals that you're not a walking ad, but they have to be priced right to make you live too, right? Like, so you want less deals that are just priced better versus taking maybe smaller deals that...
How do you think about that?
It's conversations that I revisit with my manager all the time. We're always talking about like, if I'm too busy, that's also a good sign. But then also like, maybe we're priced too low. You know, like that's just something to be aware of, right? Like if you are...
Yeah, price discovery.
100%, you know, to a T. And so like we had those conversations and I don't know if she has like a full legal background. I know her parents are both lawyers. I know that she's been just analyzing contracts for a while. Right. She does all the little things like when it comes to usage and rights and like if you want to leverage me for X amount of months or if you want to boost this post, like so many things that when I'm as a new creator, you're missing out on dollars for it and you don't realize like where your likeness is going to go.
Yeah, 100%.
You said that you had some things that you wanted to talk about. You have any like, how can we be helpful?
Yeah, I mean, look, everything's been so fluid and I've been going back and forth. There's one specific thing that I saw you guys that I thought was super interesting.
Okay.
It's the brand diversification that you guys have in your portfolio. And your portfolios of like with On and Liquid Death, I saw like you guys have invested personal money in that stuff. It's something that as I've grown my brand too, it would be great to like learn how you guys went about it. How did those happen? Was that, I know that some of it's probably your own personal money, probably not necessarily Righteous Eats, but was it just you ran into a founder and you're like, I like what we're doing. We're kind of on the same page. Like, would love to invest in you guys. I think for me, I diversify my income right now. I'm parking a lot of my money into real estate. So I invest in stocks and invest in real estate, with just the mind of just knowing that like, this is working right now. It may not, like this could change so fast. So how do I like give myself a little bit of a safety net and just diversify?
The fact that you're even asking us this question and that you did your Kumon and, know like the logos that's in our like company portfolio. So the fact that you're even thinking about that, I think is number one. And two is we're very much like bullish, just super duper bullish on the creator economy. And, our beacons are anyone from like Emma Chamberlain to Mr. Beast of the world to Logan Pauls of the world. How all these creators have successfully leveraged their community to selling a CPG product. CPG is like phase one.
For sure.
You know what I mean? I think eventually that's going to lead into much more of a robust opportunity in financial institutions, real estate, and so on and so forth. Like literally how the world operates. So having that understanding, I'm going to pass it to Brian so he could talk about, how we got around to having like an investment portfolio.
Yeah.
The names and the companies that you see in the portfolio right now, the through line is very simple. It's either a creator-led brand or someone that has a deep community or a tool that is supported by communities. So like Liquid Death, they're a water company, but at the end of the day, they have a deep, loyal community of people that get tattoos, right? They get tattoos. You know how many Liquid Death tattoos there are in the world? There's a lot, right? I mean, I think we're just bullish on the fact that, you mentioned YouTubers and TikTokers, right? I think, in the Emma Chamberlain, Mr. Beast. But when I think of creators, I think of them even further. I zoom out a little bit more to say The Rock. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I understand The Rock. He's big on social media. Ryan Reynolds. And then I'm like, oh, they're creators. But I'm like, okay, actually, I keep zooming out, right? And then I zoom out even further to say, I think Elon Musk is a creator. I think Donald Trump is a creator. I think that, and what is a creator? Exactly.
Obama's a creator.
Yeah, Obama's a creator. So what is a creator fundamentally? A creator is someone that has a deep connection to a community. And regardless of what vessel or vehicle they're using at the time, whether it be a movie, a social media page, whatever it might be, that's just temporary. But if you have a true community, it doesn't matter what you do, they will follow you and you can pour that community and that community support into everything else. And that's fundamentally different than a celebrity. We say this all the time, but a celebrity is a one-way arrow to an audience.
Sure.
An audience is someone you sell to, someone you project to, someone you talk at. But if you're a creator, it's a two-way arrow to a community.
For sure.
And that two-way arrow to a community is a constant dialogue, right? And that's where everything is going. And on a macro, I mean, your point about food and the New York City food, ecosystem of creators, like, we don't even concern ourselves with that because we actually don't think we're even making food content.
Sure.
We're making content about building community, right?
So going back to it, like for instance, like Nectar, for instance, like hard seltzer company, and their entire approach is a creator-led, because the owner himself is the mascot of the brand. He's on the front lines every day, engaging with the community, having a podcast, doing activations, explaining the steps of getting the product into specific retailers. I had the opportunity to come across this gentleman as the brand was just starting out, and I saw the potential, and I was like, yo, y'all raising? Yeah, so that's pretty much how this whole investment. Now, mind you, it's not like, yo, we have like a huge fund, you know what I mean?
No, for sure.
Like, I also want to be very transparent about that. It's just like, yo, it's like
a signal for us. It's a signal that we have access to deal flow. We have access to cap tables, and we have fluency, and but we will have a fund. But that's not our primary concern right now. Our primary concern is building community. And proving out the model.
Totally. It's the now, but it's also the tomorrow, like way down the road. And that's my biggest thing right now, is I assess where I'm at, and as I'm looking forward into next year too, just like realize the space you're in, and there's still a lot of opportunity beyond, like you said, just looking at it as just a food space, right? Like, and what platform you're building, the communities you're building. Do you guys have an email chain, like a listserv?
No, we don't.
Y'all need that.
No. So that's another thing. That's a bandwidth thing. Like we have. I
feel like it's perfect.
We have a pretty decent sized email list, but it's like, yo, like how do we activate it? Like, how do we like consistently, like engage?
I don't have one either, right? But I think like it's just something I would subscribe to, to go on a deeper level as like a super fan of you guys, right?
Thank you, man.
So,
and by the way, that's what this is, by the way. So these are the conversations that we have. We're just trying to do it at scale.
Yeah, sure.
Because like it's cool that we're doing it on wax, but normally we would just go out to a restaurant and do this anyway. And they're like, dude, you guys are talking about all this crazy shit. Like, why aren't you guys putting this out there? That's what it is, right?
Yeah.
Do you have a Discord?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
Do you guys have one?
We just started recently.
Okay.
Yeah. So
and again, it's a function of bandwidth. Like,
totally.
What's your experience in saying no?
Kid in a candy store when you're first starting, right? You were so hyped for everything, like, oh, I'm gonna be at this. I think it's young energy too. Like, I think I'm slowing down a little bit on that. But myself and my manager, we have a lot of conversations, because why I say she's so good, and my fiance, we are always recircling back. Is my time being used the best it can? Because I probably I could also be a little disorganized, like sometimes, where I can be working on things that probably don't need to be worked on, right? So we are constantly assessing things that come in, opportunities that come in. Does this make sense? Could you be doing something else at this time? Or is that like a good time to carve out that time to go attend this or be a part of that or take this or whatever? So it's definitely, that's taken some time too. But I think where I was like so down for yes and everything, I don't want to say it didn't matter, but like it was less, there's also less repercussions for it too. I was way smaller. I was like I didn't really fully develop my voice yet either. So it was a good like trial and error learning what I liked a little bit too, right? There's that that back and forth that happens, dialogue. The good thing is I'm not alone.
So give us like a little bit of insight into like the conversation that you have with your manager. And before you do that, I'll share, like, just to be transparent. Like, so let's say if I get invited to like a movie screening that's accompanied by a dinner, which some of these apps have offered us to attend. Him and I were talking about, all right, cool, yo, who's gonna be there? Like, then okay, cool, let's talk about that. Let's expand on that. What can we get out of it? Like, are we gonna get content?
Totally.
Is it contact? Or is it just like an opportunity for us to have a free date night because we haven't been tending to our misses in a while?
Right.
You know what I mean? So these are all things that we kind of like think about. And it might sound fucking maniacal, you know what I mean?
No, but it's real.
But your time is, we're like freelance contractors, you know what I mean? 100%. We're like mercenaries out here. Like, every hour counts. So,
and I didn't even like touch on the other half of it. Like, we're talking, in my head, like I was just talking strictly about my page, my platform, what I'm doing. But like, there's that other half of life that matters even more that you have to make time for, right?
Do you have a schedule?
So it is like kind of assessing the week. And and trying to carve out time specifically that it's just going to be like me and my fiance kind of doing something, or what can we double as, you know, that happens a lot because a lot of what we're doing is eating. How do we make sure that the food doesn't overshine like our time and we can still like quick move, let's talk, let's actually dive a little bit deeper, you know? So there's those things. And my manager also has access to my calendar, so she sees what I'm working on and all that stuff. And most of the events go to her directly. There are some people who have my email or contact information from the past, or they DM me, but I try to give everything to her because she's my first filter. She knows where I want to be in 5 years. So she's my first one to kind of assess and say, is this going to be beneficial for Brian to be there? Or can he bang out of the video tonight? Or can he just have a night with Alyssa because his mental health is so much better? And like, you know, that's helpful.
Walk us through a week.
Sure. Crazy.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's crazy because there could be some probably better organized stuff, but it is that, you know, coming off of having quote unquote 2 jobs, that 9 to 5 and this, I feel like I was working so much more efficient. And they say like sometimes you need that deadline to lock things in. So being a packed calendar kind of kept me more efficient, but now I'm trying to be out and just grabbing content, meeting with people, doing more of these things like podcasts, networking, like things I couldn't do in the daytime with other creators and people, you know, in the niche, outside the niche, and just like general like conversations. So a lot of my time now is like meeting with people and then editing videos, meeting with people, grabbing some content, meeting with people, looking at my page, looking at what I want to focus on for like the month. I should like, even on the train ride back from my fiance's family in Pittsburgh, I wrote out like every piece of content that I want for the month of December. So I know that's the baseline, what I'm working towards, and I can be staying on track while carving out time for the other things that I need to do. But I've noticed that like I've lost a little window for hobbies, which is interesting. And
because this was your hobby before, right?
And it's no longer a hobby. Like I definitely love food, but it's no longer a hobby. It's just like I have to overanalyze a lot now when it comes to it. Naturally, it's who I am, and I need something again that isn't tied to my pocket or tied to the stress of like, will people see this or are we assessing something? I need to find some like just peaceful things that are just for me.
Any potential candidates in
something that
quest?
I think I'm gonna be interested into is coffee, like latte art and like latte making.
Interesting.
My fiance really likes coffee. I like coffee too, but she likes it more than me. So it's like one thing I can be doing for her every morning. But 2, there's something just like very calming and relaxing about taking out your beans, measuring it on a scale, putting it in the grinder, then doing the latte art, steaming the milk. Like it's almost therapeutic. And I tried it a couple of times and it slows me down.
100%. Because you have to be present.
Totally.
In order for it to be a successful latte.
Totally.
With the heart shape and all that.
Yeah. No, it's 100% like, and I think that can set the tone for me in the morning. Is like my logic is like I'm slowing down myself in the morning instead of thinking about everything that I have to do.
It's a form of meditation.
Yes.
Of course, I'm going to ruin that by being like, oh, but you know, coffee is also a huge TAM, and you know, the second most traded commodity next to oil. So,
and on top of that, it's also you're a food creator, so there is that connection.
I know.
Yeah, you could eventually pivot.
That's true. But I'm looking on the peaceful front for now.
Yeah.
Then we got to find a new hobby. You know? That's what it is.
Yeah, man. That's interesting. So I had a question for the people that you're meeting.
Yeah.
Like, do you have like a I guess like a description of the type of people that
how deliberate are you with?
I think they're just so natural. But I think that is the benefit of going to some of these events. There's just I feel like some of it's just the energy you're putting out too. Like I think that's why this happened. Like we were just all so open to the conversation, and I think my mindset, whether it's intentional or not, is just embracing the cool just stories of people of New York. And I like when I tell you that they could be someone totally random, they could be someone that has influence, or just like I'm really open to a lot of conversations. And it's the time for me to do it too, as I'm trying to like flush out what's next and just like learning about myself, like what I like, what people are liking. I think it's a good opportunity to just kind of just meet people and learn stories. Like even your backgrounds, both of you guys, once again, this is why we have this conversation. It's so much bigger than what people see on the day to day. And so we're in a space that, and it's a privilege that we meet a lot of creators, a lot of people who are just doing fun things. Even if they're not creators, they're creator adjacent. Maybe they're a journalist. Maybe they run a fundraiser that like is doing cool things in the city. You just want to learn more about it and how they got there, what's inspiring them, because that right now is what's going to get me like kind of phase 2, phase 3, you know? So
what's phase 2, phase 3?
Right now, to your point, I don't want to put myself in that box of just the food guy, right? Like I think I have way bigger interests. I don't know. I think the hard visualization of the 5-year plan is just like where I'll be, because my fiance's family's in Pittsburgh, my family's Long Island. My career is a lot of New York City right now. But I do think that the same nature of using my platform and my energy for people to kind of shine, tell stories, I do get a lot of joy in that. Something that's happened a lot this year too is what you guys probably feel a lot when you have your community events. This year was me hosting a couple more events and how I'm touching my audience more. And I think that's inspiring me to think like, to your point, it's beyond me being a food person. It's me and like how people are connecting with me on deeper levels. And I feel like I had a little bit of like a Wizard of Oz type of relationship for a while where I'm putting out stuff and and it's some of it's like you guys are talking to the restaurants, even, however you operate, you are engaging with them a little bit like more. And I think some after the fact. I feel like I've gotten some places viral and I need to like go back and visit and dig deeper with them. And it helps my motion forward, So those little things, but long-winded to get to 5-year plan. I think like I could see myself using the platform similarly. Is that TV? Is that, hosting something on a bigger scale? That could be really cool. But I do have this like business hat, entrepreneur hat that like real estate's still really fun for me. Is there a way that maybe I can incorporate 2 worlds, like where I buy a property upstate and I'm hosting events, getting different like conversations going in a Catskills house, and like that's just an avenue that I'm thinking of. But there's just a lot of ways that they could go. It's not fully flushed out, but I think this upcoming year is like the big year to kind of really get me there.
And you think that you want to like brainstorm or chop up?
So I think how you guys host events, I think is also really cool, and getting people out. And part of that is building the brand there. But like from a restaurant standpoint, how, like I've seen you guys partner with Coke before, and how does that work? And this is maybe less about the podcast, but just more just right now being accessible and touchable and like being out there is so important to me. And I want to do more of that stuff. And I think like there's ways to do it, but just why reinvent the wheel for some people who do it pretty naturally, So
I think if anything, we're like still trying to figure out the wheel.
Okay.
Like, we're like carving it,
sure,
but the wheel doesn't have like good tires yet. The community activations that we're doing, as much as I'm proud of and happy and I'm very grateful for, I don't think it was at a stage where is at the phase that we eventually want to get to. So for instance, you mentioned the Coke situation. So Coke offered us an opportunity to create a number of content throughout the year. One of the deliverables was it was an ideation. It was an idea that we came up with. So we basically told them like, yo, y'all wanted us to highlight a moment? Cool. Get us a bag. We'll buy out the restaurant and then we'll bring our community over, and that will be the moment.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So that way the restaurant gets revenue. We are able to treat our community. Coke gets the deliverable that they want. Like we're just trying to like, that was an instance of us trying to figure out how do we make our brand partners, our community, and, our own brand, everybody win.
I don't even think we've scratched the surface as to what we want to do, really. And it's just a function of bandwidth.
Yep.
Like we're a team of 3. And I love that you're thinking about it because, again, that's a differentiator.
Yeah. I think it for the long term, but also just inspiring too. I think just hearing the voices of the people who are following you and what, you know, what is like drawing, what do you have that's drawing them? Like hearing it from their mouths, right? You can make all these assumptions of what your ideal audience member is, but for the people who do follow, you got to like almost ask that, right? Like what is really...
We love that. When we have these events, we literally like, how'd you hear about us?
Yeah.
It's always humbling, you know what I mean? Especially the range of people that comes through. But yeah, like if you have any ideas about like doing an IRL event, and if you ever want to like chop it up,
however we can help.
Yeah, just
I appreciate
holla at
that,
us.
guys. Yeah.